Okay, that last video was a weird analogy that's, you're gonna have to kind of trust me for now, is gonna help us explain how Einstein fixed space and time. The first video was just sort of outlining Einstein's motivation, that there was an issue with space and time, that reference frames had a fundamental flaw that he needed to fix because you can't see two different things, two different outcomes from two different perspectives. That's not good. So here is Einstein's fix. Instead of thinking of space and time as completely independent, separate things, he combined them into one entity that we call spacetime. You've heard about it in science fiction stuff. Space-time is really our old space and time just combined into one. And Einstein went one step farther. He said everything is moving through space-time at the speed of light. So right now you're at home, sitting at your computer, listening to this video, reading this note. As you sit at your computer, you're actually moving through space-time at the speed of light. If you were to jump in your car and drive down the road, you're moving through space-time at the speed of light. If things open up and we start going for rides in planes and trains and automobiles, as you're moving in your planes, trains, and automobiles, you're moving through space-time at the speed of light. So in special relativity, everything is moving at the speed of light, but then the fine print is through space-time. Let's backtrack. As you sit at your computer, you aren't moving through the space part of space-time. You're at rest, you're not moving through space. What that means is since you're not moving through space, you're moving through the time part of space-time as quickly as possible. In a way, you sitting at your desk is you're kind of like car one. All of your space-time velocity, all of your space-time motion is through time, and none of it is through space. So as you sit at your computer, since you're not moving through the space part of space-time, that means all of your velocity is pointed through the time part of space-time, which means you're ticking through time as fast as you ever will. If we switch it, if you're standing on the sidewalk and you watch me drive by, or I flipped it here, I'll say it the way I typed it. If I watched you drive down the road in a car, from my perspective of me standing on the sidewalk, I would say you are moving through space. Since I see you moving through space, that means you've diverted some of your space-time velocity, some of your space-time motion out of the time component, and you're using some of that motion to go through the space component. That's kind of like car 2. Since you're traveling through both components, space and time, you can't go through time as quickly since you're going through space. So whenever anything starts traveling around, it diverts some of its motion out of the time component so that it can travel through the space component. And since it's split that motion between the two, it's going to overall be going through time a little bit slower. If we stood on the ground and watched airplanes fly by, they're going through space even faster than cars. So since they're going through space even faster, they'd be like car 2 going on a bit of a steeper angle. The faster something goes through space, the slower it goes through time. That is the first point of special relativity. Sometimes they draw these graphs, they call them space-time graphs. An object at rest means on its space-time graph, this is almost like a position time graph from grade 11 physics. Instead of position, we call it space. If something is just at rest, that means it's not moving through space. If it's not moving through space, that means that its line would be perfectly horizontal. Really what that's saying, now picture this little red arrow as its velocity. Its velocity is pointed parallel to the time axis. So since the velocity arrow is perfectly horizontal, all of its velocity is through that time dimension and not the space dimension. So it's going to tick through time as quickly as it ever would. As opposed to if you're moving through space slowly, then that red arrow should be the same length, but now it's on a bit of an angle. Since it's on a bit of an angle, this sort of horizontal or time component has to be a little bit shorter than what it was when the object was moving. Sorry, when the object was standing still. So when the object's moving, This horizontal component has to be a little bit shorter because it's split its velocity. The hypotenuse is always the longest side. This side's got to be a bit shorter. What that means is when something is moving through space, its velocity through the time component isn't as large, which means it ticks through time less quickly or ticks through time a little bit slower. If we have an object moving through space really quickly, then that red arrow is on a bigger angle. And as that red arrow gets on a bigger angle, I should switch colors. As that red arrow is on a bigger angle, that means that the velocity through time gets shorter and shorter and shorter. So this blue arrow would be shorter than the previous one, which was shorter than the one before that. The faster something goes through space, the steeper the angle of its velocity on our space-time diagram, the slower it ticks through time. So literally, here I keep on talking, literally now I switch it. If you're standing on the sidewalk and watch me zoom by on my bike, since you're standing on the sidewalk, if you look at your watch, it's not moving through space, so it's going to tick through time as fast as it possibly could tick. That's the rate of time that we're kind of used to. So look at your watch right now, look at a clock. How quickly it's ticking is sort of our normal time. Sometimes they call it proper time. How fast time would tick when you're not moving. But if I zoom by on my bike while you're standing still, if you could see my watch, since my watch is moving through space, it's going to be ticking a little bit slower than your watch. Since I'm moving through space, I can't be moving through time as quickly because I've stolen some of my space-time, or I've shared my space-time velocity, some of it to go through space, which means less of it is available to move through time. If you watch me zoom by on my bike and exactly 1 minute went by on your watch, less than a minute would have gone by on my watch. It would be very subtle, but everything about me would be in slow motion. The mechanics of my watch would be ticking in slow motion. The biology going inside my body would be in slow motion. So if I'm digesting food, my hair is falling out, everything biological about me would be slightly slow motion. If for some reason I was visiting Snatty and I had some sort of chemical reaction in my hand, or weirder, I had some sort of nuclear reaction happening in my hand while I biked by, the chemical reaction would be happening, it's slightly slowed. The nuclear reaction would be happening slightly slowed. Everything about me would be slightly slowed because I've diverted some of my space-time velocity into the space component, which means there's less available for the time component. Now realistically, if I zoom by on my bike as fast as I think I can bike, you're not going to notice anything. The effect is negligible at sort of everyday speeds. Even if you could see an airplane zoom by, you wouldn't see special relativity in the airplane. To see it, we have to get crazy, crazy fast speeds. So now we have to use our imagination a bit. What if I zoom by in a spaceship? If I'm zooming by in a spaceship, if you could see my watch would be ticking slower. If I'm going so crazy fast, maybe when the 1 minute goes by on your watch, only 59 seconds have gone by on mine. If we stretch that out, if I go zoom by so fast for so long that maybe a full hour goes by on your watch, then only 59 minutes will have gone by on mine. If we keep exaggerating this, if my spaceship goes even faster, maybe when 1 minute goes by on your watch, only 30 seconds goes by on my watch. If we amplify that, when an hour goes by on your watch, only 30 minutes will have gone by. If I keep this up and a year goes by on your calendar, half a year or 6 months will have gone by on my calendar. By moving that crazy fast, I would have gone through less time than you would have. If we could pull this off, if I could go that crazy fast that when a minute goes by on your watch, only 30 seconds goes by on mine, if we could keep that up in the year, I would literally have aged 6 months less than you. If I were to come back on Earth and hang out with you, it's as if I've traveled 6 months into the future. I've experienced 6 months of life, but when I come back to Earth, I'm a full year later than when I left, so it's as if I jumped 6 months into the future. It is crazy, but the laws of physics say that you can time travel, but only into the future. There's two ways. This is our sort of first way to time travel. If you could go crazy, crazy fast and then return to Earth, it would be like traveling into the future. How much into the future depends on how crazy fast you go. What's crazy about all this is It sounds weird. It sounded even weirder when Einstein came up with it because the fastest thing they had were like steam-powered trains. Um, but it keeps getting experimentally verified through tiny particles, through fast airplanes, through really, really accurate clocks. As we move through space, our motion through time becomes slower. It is an experimentally verified fact. I'm going to pause this video here before we go on. If you have any questions, reach out with an email and try and wrap your brain around this weird stuff.